Greetings, friends. Welcome back to one more session of Coach Excellence Coaching Conversations. And this time I have a wonderful coach all the way from US. And I have today Meenakshi with us. And before I hand over to Meenakshi to share something about herself with us, let me share a little detail that I got to know from her during the conversation. Meenakshi is a T-shaped servant leader, lean, agile, human-centered design practitioner, and also a solopreneur and professional coach. Her interdisciplinary career of more than 2 decades spans IT, agile, business transformation, international healthcare, HR training, the list is long, and ESL training in India as well as US. With that, I hand over to Meenakshi to quickly share something about herself before we get into the conversation. Over to Meenakshi. Thanks for joining in today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Kiran. It's wonderful to meet you and have this very pertinent conversation with you and with your global audience. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And just to add to what your introduction of me, in my current avatar, I would say I serve as the founder and principal of North Star Solutions and Services, which is a 100% virtual future of work oriented coaching, consulting, and training practice. And we're physically located in the US, but then our clients are worldwide and we use technology to service everyone. And my specialty is I serve as a personal agility and self-leadership coach.
Wow. One thing that stood out while you were introducing about yourself is this 100% virtual. I think with the pandemic, virtual meetings and virtual conversations, I think have become like a normal thing.
Absolutely. And that was so I started 6 months before the pandemic hit. So North Star Solutions and Services is getting ready to celebrate our second birthday in August. And one of the things that I had in mind, even when I started, was to be able to serve a global audience. So that was one less thing to worry about for me during the pandemic.
Great. So with that, let's quickly jump into the conversation. The very first one. What is coaching to you?
To me, coaching is perhaps the most impactful of human interactions. In my experience, coaching conversations are extremely powerful. They offer the time and space to really focus on oneself and how one interacts with with themselves and also with others. And the other cool thing about coaching to me is that it's a forward-looking conversation, but it's rooted in the here and now. And I find that extremely inspiring. And having been a client myself, what I've experienced is the ability to see things clearly from different perspectives, with my coach kind of holding mirrors all around me to get the different perspectives. And then feeling empowered to pick and choose from the different perspectives and taking in all of that to develop a composite view so that I can proceed further with clarity and conviction. So to me, coaching is about clarity, confidence, and conviction.
Oh, the 3 C's sounded very
yes.
And something that stood out for me while you were sharing, most impactful. I must agree. I think there is nothing that, at least for time being, that I have experienced that can be more impactful for an individual. And as you also added, powerful. It indeed is a powerful event and an experience for those who come with that intent and hunger. And you mentioned about it offers that time and space for oneself. It is so important in today's hectic life when you give yourself that time and space, and which happens at the highest quality standards in a coaching conversation. I think breakthrough
Absolutely.
are a common thing. And last but not the least, what you mentioned was stood out. I would repeat it because it looked very essential. Forward looking conversation, but rooted in the here and now. How beautiful it is to capture the whole thing of, I would like to look forward, but at the same time, I'm going to talk, act, and probably be present in the now and work towards it. So a fabulous way to begin. So let's move to the next question. Who benefits from having a coach?
Yeah, this one, I had to think a little bit about this one. And, I landed at everyone can benefit from having a coach, all walks of life, all ages. And the reason I say that is because of the power that exists in that coaching process, in that conversation. And I think that everyone has something to gain. The only call out I'd like to make is that uh, the the client or the coachee, there is a certain level of self-awareness and self-preparedness, I would say, that's important to really benefit from the impact of coaching, because you know invariably a coachee would walk away from a coaching conversation with a lot of insights and breakthroughs, like you mentioned. And there is value in that only if there is that um, sense of the need for self-improvement, and that bias for action, as I call it, to do something with it. So otherwise, you will not experience the benefit of it. So, in a nutshell, I think anybody and everybody can experience can benefit from coaching or from having a coach. But then the key is to be willing and ready to move forward with those action items that you come out of a coaching conversation with.
Fabulous. In fact, that word, what you said, though bias usually has a negative connotation, I could connect with the immense positivity that came with the line bias for action.
Absolutely.
As you pointed out, that self-awareness and importance for something that is key for them or critical for them. With that, if they come into a coaching conversation, I think they will definitely leverage. Another thing that you pointed out is the power within themselves. And this whole beautiful experience can happen. I can safely say no place is better for this to happen than a coaching conversation.
Absolutely. And I think that you get as much as you put in it. You get out of it as much as you put in it.
Great. So with that, let's move to the next one. This is around myths. Around the world, everything has myths around it. Same is the case with coaching. What is that one myth about coaching that you would like to burst today?
That's an interesting question. I would say that to think that coaching is easy because it's just a conversation at the end of the day. Yes, it is a conversation, but it's a very hard conversation, I would say. And both the coach and the coachee or the client have to do a lot of hard work during the process, before, during, and after, I would say. So it's if people think that it's just a conversation, what's the big deal? I think that's a myth. And another thing that it just popped up for me is that I've had this conversation with fellow coaches and other clients as well, that we are open to investing money and spending money on our gym memberships, and this seems to be true in most parts of the world. However, when it comes to investing in a coaching engagement, we think twice about it. So I think that there is opportunity for all of us to look at coaching as something that you need to do in order to keep up wherever you are. So it's moving from good to great. So it's not about fixing a problem. So to think that coaching is simple and easy just because it's a conversation, I think is a myth. And then there's a lot of work that we need to put in.
So true. I think going by the word of just a conversation would be such a disservice to to what happens in a coaching. I'm sure that's only said by those who are yet to be familiar or get a taste of a coaching conversation. And as you mentioned, what can be more important than investing in self? If one can't invest in self, God knows what else one can do about that choice that's being made
Yeah.
at that moment in time. And as you said, it's also captured when you said good to great. It also brings out the point that even if everything looks going great for one, or everything looks normal, fine, why still lose out on an opportunity to take it to a greatness?
Hmm.
If good can become great, tomorrow that great can be taken to the next level. And when
Yeah.
time is money, I'm sure investing in oneself to move from good to great and beyond, I think is the best thing that one can do, and not go with the myths that come around this subject, and not
Yeah.
waste time, but ask for one. And most of the coaches, in fact, offer the chemistry conversation. So
Yes.
speaking of that, I think it's a no cost that to get an experience of it. And I'm sure after that, most of them would be more than happy to invest time, energy, and also money, because
Hmm.
that will bring commitment at a very higher order from within. So with that, let's move to the next question.
Hmm.
One coaching memory of yours that you can share with the audience today while taking care of the confidentiality aspect.
Yes, of course. And this actually is from early on in my career as a coach, or in my experience as a coach. This is, a client. Again, as I said, I practice virtual coaching. My practice is a virtual coaching practice. So this client based in the Far East, we had just met online. Someone actually introduced us via LinkedIn. And so the entire coaching engagement was, I think, about 7 to 9 months, I would say. And it was like around 6 to 7 sessions during that time period. When they started off at a very, with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of issues at work, in their personal life, and uncertainty around their job, all of that. And at the end of the engagement, what I saw in them, I was just completely blown away with what I saw in them, how they had transformed, just because of all the hard work that they had put in those coaching conversations and the engagement that we had. And they went from uh, how they were feeling at the beginning of the engagement to feeling not only empowered for themselves, but
Mm.
also capable of helping others.
Wow.
And they realized, so they became a believer in coaching, in the whole process of coaching, and how much they had benefited from it. And they were so much affected by it in a positive way. They were so inspired that they wanted to gift coaching to
Wow.
one of their family members. And so they said, you know what, it's Christmas time, and I want to pay for coaching with you for whoever their family member was. To me, that was not only just, that was the best testimonial I could have gotten as a coach,
Mhm.
number one. And two, just to see that individual just transform themselves like that, from feeling helpless to being some of resource to others. And when I pointed that out to them, I tell you, Kiran, I'll get the smile on their face. So to me, that's like I don't think I'll ever forget that memory.
Great. In fact, I am able to visualize it as you are sharing the experience. And I think the three steps seems to be so fabulous if I were to just capture in three stages. Someone moving from uncertainty and having issues to experiencing transformation. And you mentioned a very pertinent point there. The hard work was put in by themselves.
Hmm.
Then they becoming capable of helping or supporting others is such a wonderful thing to happen with anyone. And
Absolutely.
for sharing that.
And I have to say this as a bonus, I got a great marketing idea for my practice, because until then I had not heard of or thought of, oh, somebody can gift coaching. So I
Fabulous.
actually ran that campaign last holiday season.
Great. That's great. So thanks a lot for that, sharing that experience. Now let's move on to the next question. Why is coaching a critical professional and or leadership skill?
Hmm. That's a good one. And for me, as someone who specializes or focuses on self leadership, I believe that, first of all, I believe that all of us are leaders in our own right. Leadership doesn't call for positional power or titles. And I think that if we leadership starts with self. So if we can't lead ourselves, how are we going to lead others? How we show up as leaders is important to, is a critical success factor in leadership. And the other thing is, and I'm sure most of us have heard of VUCA, right? Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And those are the times that we live in these days. And what I find is that in a coaching conversation, I mean, you may have an agenda, of course. The coachee knows what the coachee wants to talk about. But at the end of the day, both the coach and the coachee are traveling up on a path, and they're creating the path as they're walking it. They're discovering what's happening, and they're responding to what's emerging. And so the only thing that you can do is to be present and curious and respectful. To me, that's how a coaching conversation, that engagement happens. And in times of VUCA, I think that's a skill to have, to be comfortable with not knowing, not having that compulsive need to predict everything, and to have the courage to respond to what emerges. And for that, you have to be present in the moment. So I see so many parallels in how a coaching conversation is structured. It's such a balance between structure and flow. And I think that that's a critical professional and or leadership skill to have, particularly in the context of the future of work.
Great. 3 things stood out when you mentioned was, one, all of them are leaders. I think there is no exception. Everyone can be a leader. And you put it in the best way it can be, that the leadership starts with self. One who can lead themselves, I'm sure, has that foundation laid to get to the capability of leading many others. And another line that you shared, I was able to visualize while you were sharing, was how a coach and coachee create the path as they walk along. That's probably a path that will be determined, the direction of it will be determined by the coachee, but they both are comfortable going along while the coachee does the hard work and of creating that path. So that stood out of, actually there's no path, and the path is opening up as the coaching conversation proceeds. So that's a very nice way to articulate it. So with that, let's move to the next question. How does coaching support the IT and other technology professionals today?
Yes, Kiran. So, I come from the world of technology and technology implementation, to be precise. And more than half my career has been in the health IT space, implementing technology for various healthcare industry stakeholders. And what I have observed in that is we focus a lot on technology, and most often in a very siloed sense, and we expect technology to solve all our problems. But primarily technology, we humans create it, and we create it to solve for human problems, and or to improve human experience. And there is a process around it. So if you look at this triad of people, process, and technology, first of all, I find myself operating at my best at that intersection of people, process, and technology. And in my experience with my peers and other leaders in this space, what I find is that it's a very delicate balance between the three: people, process, and technology. But I find that I have found that in my experience, if you focus on the people and how people work and the ways of working and making sure that we are setting people up for success, everything else falls in place. And which is why I think that this is also my niche. I focus on mid-career IT and agile professionals in helping them and supporting them in their career transformation journeys. And the reason I think that coaching can really play a big role in supporting them is to bringing the focus back on the human element and the human aspect of this world that we live in. And also, some of these things that we just talked about being comfortable with not knowing everything, about being comfortable with sense and respond mindset. So I think some of these things are so wonderfully laid out in a coaching process that it can help. And I have seen it work. Several of my clients are either first-time team leads or newly promoted Scrum Masters and product owners, etc. I've seen this work, and once they discover the power of coaching as a coachee, they are so inspired and encouraged to try that with their own teams. So I think that there is a lot of scope to use this as a skill and a resource.
Fabulous. One thing, that 2 points that I quickly captured while you were sharing was, one, how technology is created by human to solve a human problem and to improve human experience. I think it brought out the importance of the human element, and you also stitched it with how the focus on people, or bringing back the focus on to the people, can get everything to fall in place.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all started with the humans, and when the
Yes.
humans are at the center of the focus, I think everything else will be taken care of. And that's where, as you shared, how coaching can make it completely human centric, and what follows probably is nothing else but excellence.
Right. Right.
Great.
And we say, right, coach the person, not the problem. And so I think it just fits
It
in.
pretty much aligns with it. So with that, we come to the end of the questions. However,
Mhm.
we have a bonus question that you will need to help us with. And that is, given an opportunity, just one advice that you would like to give for the wannabe coaches.
Oh gosh. Uh, Actually, yeah, well, there's two things that came up for me. One is starting with self. And I think that um, coaching to me is you can't uh, you can't serve others without first starting with yourself and understanding who you are, what you stand for, what are your values, what's your purpose. It's not something to say that I am going to help others fix all of their problems. I think unless you work on yourself and you are ready to do that. So to me, as any aspiring coach, start with self awareness, understanding your own purpose and values, and what are your non-negotiables, and why do you want to do this. I think that's key. And I think I would add just one more thing, like
Sure.
is curiosity, because it's so hard for us. All of us have biases, and that's why it's called unconscious bias. Becoming aware of it and then finding ways to interrupt it. I think that's a big deal, especially as a coach, because otherwise your conversations are going to be you're going to look through them through your bias glasses. So I think that would be it.
Fabulous. I think things that stood out for me quickly were when you said something like starting with self. And if also you mentioned how one can't serve others before serving self. It immediately
Hmm.
brought me the analogy of the flight announcement that comes
Yes, yeah,
saying that first take care of yourself
yes,
before you support as many possible. And it's so true,
yes,
in
yes.
that otherwise urge to try to save others, if the person does not take precaution, the person is first not there to even take care of the others. So I think that analogy very aptly connects with this, that one who has traveled that path, again, it's their own path, is well
Yes.
positioned to be along with someone who is trying to figure out their own path. I think this is what
Well said, Kiran.
beautiful
Absolutely.
space that coaches love being there along with the coachee as witness. And you pointed out a very important pertinent thing there, which is that they come with a lot of curiosity. Maybe they some
Hmm.
often say it is a childlike curiosity, and that curiosity supports the coachee so well that the coachee goes back to work upon what happened in that conversation, and then come back to again leverage that curiosity that the coach has brought to the conversation. Great. Thanks a lot
Absolutely.
for that advice for the wannabe coaches, because there are many, and all would love to get to hear the perspective from the experienced coaches. So with that, we come to the end of the conversation. Before we wind up, what is the easiest way one can reach Meenakshi if they would like to have a conversation?
Yes, certainly. So I have a public calendar on Calendly to book if anyone is interested. I do 30-minute virtual coffees, and then you can find me on LinkedIn. That's my main platform on LinkedIn, and of course my website northstaratwork.com, all lowercase, one word. It's for Northstar Solutions and Services. So yeah, you can find the link to my online calendar either through LinkedIn or through my website.
Great. I'll go ahead and share the detail as well on the screen and probably both in the description as well, so that those
Absolutely.
who want to get in touch with you wouldn't find it difficult. So with that, thanks a lot for joining in for the conversation. And to the
Absolutely,
audience,
Kiran.
yeah, thanks a lot. And for the audience, hope you found the conversation supportive. And if you have any comments or questions, please share it in the comment section below. Myself or Meenakshi will definitely come back to you. That's a promise. And if you have liked the conversation, please go ahead, hit the like. That's a way in which we will be happy to see your word of appreciation. And please feel free to share this conversation link with all those whom you feel will benefit from watching this conversation, and hit the subscribe button so that you get to be among the first to hear about whenever there is a next conversation that gets uploaded. Thanks a lot for joining with us today, and please be safe till we come back and meet for another conversation. All the very best. Thank you. Thank you very much, Meenakshi.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
God.